So, well, welcome everybody that's here. Thank you for coming. This is the January meeting of the Chamber of Commerce Government Economic Policy Committee. I am Tamara Steiner, and I'm chair of the committee. And we have a speaker today. It's an interesting topic. It's kind of different for us to be listening to and absorbing. Brian Davis, where are you, Brian? There he is, moving around on the screen. Brian Davis is here with some members of his staff from the LGBTQ plus minus tobacco initiative. And this is an effort to address the tobacco abuse by underage kids, especially the LGBTQ vulnerable youth. And they want to talk about the way tobacco companies are manipulating young kids to use it, and flavors and easy access, and direct marketing and vaping. He will talk about what some of the other communities, other jurisdictions are doing to address this. And I believe, I don't know when exactly, Brian, you had mentioned January, but I'm not sure if it's this month, but they will be going to the Concord City Council and asking for some grant funding. So welcome, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Just real quickly, in response to our project's called LGBTQ minus tobacco. We are not going to the city council, and we're not asking for grant funding from the city council. Okay. We'll talk about what we're doing as part of the slideshow that we have.
That was a conversation we had.
Sorry if there was confusion on that. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves before we go to the slideshow. In addition to the 3 staff members from our project, there's also a young man who is a high school student who will also speak during the presentation. So my name is Brian, and I'm the project director of LGBTQ minus tobacco. Jimmy, you want to go?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Jimmy, and Sarah, he, him pronouns, and I am the community health outreach worker with LGBTQ minus tobacco.
And Amaya?
Hi everyone, Amaya Wooding, she, her pronouns. I am project assistant at LGBTQ minus tobacco. Great to be here today.
Mm-hmm. Cameron, did you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Cameron Meyer, and I'm a senior at De La Salle High School. And I'm a youth volunteer for ACS CAN.
All right, which is American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, in case you didn't know that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the first slide then. Should also, before I say anything else, thank you all very, very much for giving us the opportunity to be here today to give this presentation. So it's called Helping Concord Youth Fight Stress and Stay Tobacco Free. It's a presentation that we're giving you here today. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide.
So by helping Concord youth fight stress, we need to have a better idea of where it potentially came from. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about ACE, or adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, which are traumatic events that occur in childhood. For example, experiencing violence or abuse or neglect, or witnessing violence in the home or in the community, or having a family member attempt or die by suicide. And these experiences that are had during childhood lead to something called toxic adult syndrome. Next slide. And what do these responses to toxic stress look like? So they look like increased substance abuse, such as tobacco, which is what our projects here talk about today, alcohol and increased alcohol and drugs, increased behavioral and mental health problems like anger, anxiety, depression, increased social economic problems like school dropouts, or unstable relationships, or legal system skirmishes, like such as poverty, and also increased health problems like obesity, diabetes, COPD, heart disease, strokes, and cancer. And these people have suffered a lot of things, and ACEs are negatively impacting their education, their job opportunities, and earning potential. However, ACEs can be prevented. Next slide, please. But we want to underscore how at every point in development, tobacco causes problems. Symptoms of ACEs, especially depression and anxiety, are linked to increased tobacco use across all age groups. Large surveys have been able to find that experiencing any type of ACE, except living with someone with a mental illness, increase the odds of smoking. Oftentimes the studies will look at a certain cutoff, like people with 5 or more ACEs versus 0, but even in comparisons of 1 of 3 ACEs versus 0 shows that it's a significant impact. And once someone with toxic adult syndrome is using tobacco, how do you address the damages done by ACEs when adding nicotine makes all other physical and mental health conditions worsen? So what we're saying is preventing tobacco from entering picture is key. Next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, and so the overlap between ACEs and tobacco is also important for our project, which is LGBTQ focused, because LGBTQ people report more of both. So here you can see the top bar is straight people and the ACEs that they report, and the bottom line is lesbian, gay, and bisexual folks and the ACEs that we report. So like Jimmy was talking about, the large number of ACEs, so that's the orange bar, orange part of the bar, and then a smaller number of ACEs towards the right. LGB folks who report ACEs report more of them, which makes them more likely to use tobacco, like Jimmy was saying. And we can also see this play out in a local level. So on the right here, we have students in Mount Diablo Unified 2019-2020 school year who are reporting using e-cigarettes by grade. So you can see that in all of the grade levels that this survey asked, students who are not straight, meaning gay, lesbian, or bisexual, are reporting using e-cigarettes more. And we know there's lots of research that the stress of being LGBTQ is a big contributor to this. Concord as a city is the most LGBTQ by population in the county, at least measured by the number of same-sex couples. And it's just the largest city in the region. And so there are likely, more people, especially LGBTQ youth there. At the same time, we know that the Rainbow Community Center in town also provides a focal point for LGBTQ activities. So really Concord is a good place for us to address ACEs as they affect LGBTQ people, but also as they affect the community more generally.
And if we're looking at this also in terms of some of the comparative numbers along the lines of what we've been talking about, here we can see a chart showing that actually in 2018, the smoking rate had dropped down for all adults in California to 9.7%. And if we carry that over onto the next slide, you can see that there is some differential, however, when we look at different populations within the adult population. And so here, you can see the community that we're working with, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, 18% in 2018, almost twice as much. And in the context of what we've been talking about with the ACEs, you can see how people with mental health challenges, 30%, that's even higher, significant, almost twice as much again. So very, very much an issue that ACEs are related to tobacco use. Next slide.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers for Concord. So for young people, whether you're looking to cope with ACEs or you're just simply caught up in experimentation, the data for Concord shows that these tobacco products are widely accessible. 3 in 4 MD USD juniors said vapes were very easy or fairly easy to get, and 2 out of 5 said cigarettes were very easy or fairly easy to get. And back in 2018, 1 in 3 retailers sold to a teen decoy. So we know that teens can access these products directly from the stores. It was also found that 34 out of the 41 retailers flavored tobacco aside from cigarettes, like cheap multi-pack cigarillos, which is pictured right here. And a cigarillo, for those of you who don't know, is tobacco wrapped in tobacco leaf. Next slide, please. So the problem is cheap and flavored tobacco. So these low prices and flavor are the top reasons for youth trying to use cigarillos. So as you can see, these prices here, they're relatively cheap. You can get 2 for $1.49, 3 for 99 cents, even 5 for 99 cents. I can't even get a coffee for 99 cents these days. And so these cigarillos are the second most popular among California students. second to e-cigarettes, and they're often commonly used to smoke cannabis. And then where is this cheap tobacco at? And tobacco products are cheaper in discounted areas that have higher minority population and youth. And then the industry knows that in order to keep their products more affordable, they respond by flooding the market with coupons whenever there is a price change. Next slide.
And not only are these products cheaper in the low-income and minority areas, but they're also, the tobacco retailers are more numerous. If you look at these two images here, you see on the left the median household income for Concord, and that yellow area is around where the monument is, and it's also the lowest income area. And if that's where the blue arrow is in both images, the image on the right, you see this massive concentration of those dots, which are tobacco retailers. And so what we see is this is a local example of a pattern that we see across the country where the tobacco retailers tend to be more densely populated, selling cheaper products in lower income and minority areas. Next slide. And when we're looking at the issue of price, we're really also looking at how the tobacco industry is spending billions of dollars to keep prices low on purpose. If you look at some of those numbers there, those are just used as discounts, coupons, both directly to the retailers, the wholesalers, and coupons for the customers. And so that's $77.5 billion on price lowering strategies just in 2018. And that was just for cigarettes, not even talking about e-cigarettes, not even talking about cigarillos or other tobacco products. So this is really being done for a purposeful, deliberate reason. If you look at the next slide, you can see why. And that is that green line going up represents the prices going up through the 90s and up till 2017 there, where you see that, and then you see the red line of the percentage of youth, and youth in this case means 9th to 12th grade high school students going down. And there is a direct connection here. With the prices going up, the youth rate goes down. And there's over 100 studies that have shown this relationship, both with youth and in terms of adults who quit more when the prices are increased. And so it is a significant issue to look at. A national 10% increase in cigarette price reduces smoking among young adults by 3.5% and among underage youth by 6 to 7%. And so these prices, this connection is very real. So on the next slide, you can see that there is back to our target community of the LGBTQ population. So LGBTQ people are more likely to have lower incomes and to live in areas with higher concentrations of tobacco retailers selling cheaper products. And partly for that reason, and partly for the other reasons we discussed, the greater likelihood that the discrimination impacts on LGBTQ populations will increase the need to turn to products like this. For all these kinds of reasons, we see disproportionate use both among youth and adults, lesbian, gay, bisexual 2 times as much, and trans 3 times as much compared to their age peers. And so this is a significant issue when we're looking at this community. And so the LGBTQ population really benefits even more because of quitting, encouraged by price increases, because of youth who don't start because the prices are higher. Next slide.
Thanks, Brian. Another kind of product that deserves special attention is the issue of menthol. So if you ever had a cough drop, right, menthol is a kind of soothing throat sensation. It's the flavoring that creates that. And I was actually doing some reading earlier today on just how much harder menthol made it to quit if you're smoking a cigarette. It turns out that people who switch from menthol cigarettes to plain cigarettes had a 97% increase in the odds of success of staying quit after a year, which was just astounding to me because, if you've watched a loved one try and quit smoking, it's hard. And so knowing that, 97% chance increase just by, removing this flavor, that was pretty amazing. And menthol also has a racial justice component to it. Like it says on the slide, after decades, we're talking like over half a century of targeted marketing by the tobacco industry, we're at a point where the most conservative estimate is that 70% of African-American smokers are using menthol products. And we can watch those numbers climb up over the decades as a result. Mike Bryan was talking about of all the money that they're pouring in on discounts, sometimes even giving product away for free to these communities. And menthol also has a disproportionate effect on our focus population, the LGBTQ population. So half of lesbian and bisexual women report using menthol, as well as youth generally, with about half of high school and junior high cigarette smokers in California using menthol. And we know from some very recent local store surveys that menthol cigarettes, for one, are available in Concord stores for under $6 per pack. And then another product area of concern in terms of the youth impact is e-cigarettes. If you've been watching the news over the past couple of years, I'm sure you know Juul, that four-letter word now. And e-cigarettes are dangerous in part because of just how much nicotine they have. So you can see here the different kinds of products and the nicotine content in relative terms relative to a pack of cigarettes. So it takes about 100 cigarettes worth of nicotine to become what the literature calls, an established smoker. And so it's pretty amazing that in, one product or two products, you can get most of the way there, if not all the way, depending on, what you're using. And again, e-cigarettes are the most popular way that high schoolers in California get nicotine, and the second most popular way that high schoolers in California get their cannabis. And we know that using one of these products makes you a lot more likely as a young person to eventually go on and smoke traditional combustible cigarettes. And so now I'd like to hand it over to Cameron, who is our youth speaker, and he can talk about why this issue is important to him. So Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Amaya. Hello, Honorable Chamber. To reintroduce myself, my name is Cameron Meyer, and I'm a senior at De La Salle High School. Today, I'd like to share with you my story of witnessing addiction tear through my relationships and my community. So I walked into high school as an innocent freshman, but within the first week, it didn't pass without me seeing flavored tobacco products circulating among students. I vowed to myself that for the protection of my health and well-being, I wouldn't engage in using such products. Since then, I've kept clean, but the influence of flavored tobacco on my relationships has been profound. I made a friend early on in high school who shared many of the same interests as I did, and who also believed in avoiding alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. However, as the years progressed, he became increasingly interested in using flavored tobacco to cope with his stress. Before I knew it, he was deeply entrenched in an e-cigarette addiction that to this day has not cleared. And my friend used to be really lively, inquisitive, curious, and a happy person overall, which is why I became friends with him. And he seemed to manage his stress well at that point. But as a larger number of people at my school became hooked on flavored tobacco, in turn preaching its alleged stress alleviating function, my friend turned to using the substance to help him deal with this stress. All he seemed to be interested in was smoking. I had several conversations with him about quitting and using other stress alleviating methods, but he wouldn't budge, as most addicts do. And he became apathetic, lacked drive and motivation in and out of the classroom. And naturally, because of that, our relationship dissolved. But this story is all too common. After all, I know countless number of high school students who have gone down the exact same path. My understanding is that there are several notable locations in Concord and in the surrounding area that sell flavored tobacco to youth and thus perpetuate the issue of youth flavored tobacco abuse. From my experience talking with underage flavored tobacco users, I can say that it is as easy as visiting these locations at specific times when youth can buy it directly from these stores. Oftentimes, buying flavored tobacco underage doesn't even require a fake ID, as I know several friends who have purchased flavored tobacco without one. So what is the appeal of these products beyond stress alleviation? Well, first and foremost, it is socially and culturally looked at as a cool thing to do in many high school groups. It's an unspoken standard among many, and youth know they are harmful. At least we hope so. But many just don't care. They simply will do it for the reasons aforementioned, and because of its cheap price, meaning under $10 and interesting flavors that intrigue the young, curious minds will be attracted to flavors like mango and mint. In my opinion, this problem is not best dealt with through increasing education around the harm of tobacco. Rather, the community should take more stringent measures to regulate what products stores sell to youth. This starts by busting retailers who are violating the law in this sense. Now, businesses in Concord have had a positive impact on my high school experience as I eat out with friends, grab a smoothie, or study in a small group. I believe that businesses, especially small businesses, can have an incredibly positive impact on the community in so many different ways. However, we must not overlook the fact that there are particular bad apples that are violating the law and profiting off youth addicted to flavored tobacco. The attraction of youth to e-cigarettes and flavored tobacco products won't subside. So the next step in this fight is to understand how to stop its effects and limit its availability by adopting a policy to end the sale of all flavored tobacco products in Concord. Members of this chamber, as a high schooler, I can tell you firsthand the damage that flavored tobacco has done to my friends and loved ones in my community. It has destroyed relationships, motivation, and lungs of youth. We must take action now. Thank you.
So
Thank
much,
you.
Cameron, for sharing. Oh, Brian, did you want to?
No. Go ahead, move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Cameron, for sharing your story. This is exactly why we're looking at, as mentioned, these kinds of policies that can have a significant impact. Unincorporated Contra Costa County has a policy, as you can see here, that covers a lot of the kinds of things that we've touched on. Really, this is a good model for the most part for the city of Concord. And there are many, many other communities in the Bay Area that have similar policies to these, called a comprehensive tobacco retail license, which we could talk about, but we don't have too much more time. Just go to the next slide. Wanted to talk about how some of these solutions, especially focusing on the sale of e-cigarettes and flavored tobacco to stop those, reducing youth access by eliminating these cheap prices, ensuring that meaningful penalties for owners whose stores sell to youth, and reducing the appeal as an unhealthy coping mechanism for the ACEs population. And moving on to the next slide.
Yeah, so we wanted to give some examples of ways that other communities are dealing with this issue of cheap tobacco. So one thing that can be done as part of the policy that Brian was talking about is set a minimum price that tobacco products must be sold at. And so here are just examples of mostly local communities that have taken action. As you can see at the bottom, since 2014, the Surgeon General has recommended a $10 minimum price on the grounds that it would tank youth smoking and other tobacco product use. And so we can see, a lot of cities are getting there, and some have even taken up that $10 minimum price. Of course, among these that are working on it, we have this campaign in Concord, and there is also work going on in Pittsburgh and Antioch as well. And another way to address the issue of price is also to prevent redemption of coupons, right, which are a way for the tobacco industry to get around these tactics. And then something that we hear a lot, sorry about that. Something that we hear a lot is, okay, so you're talking about, regulating price. Is this a tax? Because, there's a whole bunch of paperwork and politicking that goes into taxes, and no. So minimum price law is not a tax because the money the revenue that retailers get from raising the price does not get taken by government, except as, other taxes apply to it. So what we hope happens here, and what research bears out happens here, is that the retailers end up with more revenue, but price-sensitive populations like youth, like LGBTQ people, end up deterred by the new minimum price.
And we want to talk a little bit about some of the financial aspects of this, because this is the Chamber of Commerce, and try to get to this relatively quickly. I know time is short, but pointing out that research has shown that ending the sale of flavors in California would actually be good for the economy. You can see the numbers there. 46,000 people stopping smoking. That's actually more people than in all of Pleasant Hill. 10,700 people not dying prematurely. That's about as many people who live in Clayton. And so these are some numbers, just looking at these massive numbers that would be good for California's economy, saving on healthcare. On the next slide, you can see that there is, again, significant amounts of money that are costs to the economy because of tobacco sales. And I won't read off all these numbers, but you can see where that, just how massive that is, both in Contra Costa County and in nationwide. And if you took all of these, impacts and you, charge them to the sale of a pack of cigarettes and then use that money to reduce those impacts, or even just with whether you did that or not, the cost would be $37 per pack. And so this is really what we need to think about when we're thinking about what tobacco costs. What is it costing us overall as a society? On the next slide, just really quickly wanted to show you some information from the convenience stores themselves, pointing out that yes, they do sell the big chunk of their in-store sales are tobacco products, 34%, but the actual, on the left, you can see the actual profit from that is 17%. So while they're making almost a reverse amount when it comes to food service, making 39% in profit, 25% in sales. On the next slide, it talks just a little bit about some from a conference that they held in 2019 among the convenience stores, talking about looking at how they're seeing how they need to grow beyond tobacco sales, Cokes and gas to make their money. And they grew out of the recession in 2008, and they've had 5,399 more convenience stores since then. They're recognizing that innovation is necessary, but they're recognizing that the future is moving away from tobacco sales. Continue, please.
Yeah, and so speaking of physical stores, like Cameron shared, that is a place where lots of young people can go to get tobacco products. Like Cameron was sharing, a lot of times ID isn't even checked. And so the state does rather sparse and kind of as able checks of tobacco retailers. And so here's some data from its visits to Concord. You can see, depending on the year, it varies, but the high in 2018 was over a third of the stores that they visited sold. And at the time in 2018, there were almost 90 tobacco retailers in Concord. So you can tell that these visits are only a fraction of what could have been happening. So the best way to make sure that these checks are happening and that youth aren't able to access tobacco in retail stores is by having a policy that funds that. And it turns out that Concord actually does have the structure on the books, and it's had that since the early 2000s, but it hasn't been enforced in, as far as we can tell, at least 10 years. So the issue was sort of lying dormant for a while, but then e-cigarettes came on the scene, and in brief, everyone freaked out, and it re-entered the public conscience. So just a couple of years ago, Mount Diablo Unified adopted a resolution really urging the cities that it services to take action on flavored tobacco, on vapes, on cheap tobacco, and all of the surrounding policies. And so about a year ago, Concord City Council voted to prioritize the issues of updating its tobacco policy and we got votes to prioritize from council members Bursan and Elianin.
So we're always looking for new organizations who would be open to hearing a presentation for us. And this is just a list of some of the organizations that we have presented to, like the Rainbow Community Center. We've presented the Monument Democratic Club, Concord Casa First Five. So like I said, if you have any suggestions, we would love to hear any organizations or referrals that would love to hear a presentation from us. Next slide. And how else you can help is you can volunteer with our LGBT minus tobacco, our community advocate team. And our community advocate team is just a group of advocates who are devoted to tobacco policy and education work. We meet about 6 times a year, virtually for now, but hopefully in person when it's safe. And our meetings, focus on community education, advocacy, health equity, tobacco control policy, and skill building. We also have an endorsement that we'll put the link to in the chat, and then also a survey for you to fill out to let us know how we did.
And that's pretty much it for us. So thank you very much for allowing us to present to you today. Any questions?
Should I stop sharing, Brian?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Nicole. I have my hand up there. I have a question and a comment, actually. So first, I'm really happy to hear about this effort because vaping is such an issue. I've actually had to deal with it myself. And I wondered if you guys have thought about starting this education. I saw that you've been in some of the Mount Diablo schools, but I've really found that this problem starts in middle school. And so, as young, well, I'm not going to say how young because I don't know, but I know that for my family, it became a problem in like 7th and 8th grade. So they, in some schools are more strict than others about the punishments and the repercussions for smoking at school. So I don't know what the district does about it, or they have a district-wide policy, but it's just different, like the punishment for doing it at school. So that's just a comment or something to think about. But I also know that you guys probably have somewhat limited scope in how you can affect all of this. And I wasn't quite sure, just from listening, but from my understanding, a lot of the younger kids get it from the other kids, almost like dealing, right? Like somebody adult orders it online for a really discounted price probably, and then they resell it at school. So I figured that's probably out of your scope or out of your reach, but is there anything being done around the online sales or to curb some of this, I guess, illegal selling of these vapes?
Maya, you want to talk about online sales?
Sure. Yeah. So we know from statewide surveys that it's actually a pretty small fraction of youth who are getting their product directly from an online store. And California, recently passed legislation, which I guess it's been a couple of years now, so hopefully it's taken effect. But you need to present ID and have it verified before you can get certain tobacco products delivered by mail, and a lot of the bigger carriers won't even ship tobacco products anymore. Of course, we just got done talking about how tobacco laws aren't really enforced, so that can only be so much. But yeah, I think it's a matter of if you sort of keep following it back, did it come from a retailer? Did it come from a community source? Yeah, and so we can't really do anything about folks who are, say, getting it from their parents. That's a story that I've heard, which is kind of terrifying. But we do know that in cities that have strong policies related to tobacco sales, we actually do see that fewer high schoolers end up trying tobacco and then, end up suffering the consequences of that. Hope that answers the question to some degree.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to say that I'm sorry to hear that this has been a problem in your family. And the middle school is definitely an area that we have been reaching out to and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thanks. And I mean, I just, for anybody on the panel here that's not had to deal with it, it really reaches across all demographics, economically, it's so pervasive that there's no really stigma attached to it for the kids.
Brian, I apologize for making that mental leap from, I know you were going to address the city council and ask for support. My mind immediately, excuse me, leaped to grants and financial, but what is it that you are, because I know there was a minimum number of surveys that you need to hit that 100 mark on surveys. Are you making a presentation? What are you going to the city council for and when?
We are, first of all, we are focused on educating the community on these issues, and offering the model policies, the policies in other communities, such as at the county level that we talked about in the presentation, and offering technical assistance to Concord city staff. As was mentioned in the presentation, we have it has been added to the priority list for the city of Concord for them to deal with it. They told us in the past that it could come up at some point during the first 6 months of this year. Okay. And so it's really just a matter for us of reaching out into the community to find folks such as yourselves, hopefully who will, be willing to say that this is an issue of importance to them, encourage the city council to look at some of these options, and just keep working as well with the city staff to help make sure that they have all the information they need to work on the proposal for the elected officials to consider.
Thank you. What just excuse me, wrap that up. Are there any? I'm intrigued with the minimum price point. That's you raise the price and the use drops off because they don't have the money. Yeah. Are there any other products that I can't think of any other products that have a minimum price point attached to them jurisdictionally or jurisdictionally? Or legislatively?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Amaya, anything that you can think of?
I feel like you could probably make an argument that gas to some degree, depending on, what sort of taxes are put in there, but it's not quite the same, right? Because
you're not talking about taxing to increase the price. You're talking about setting a minimum price. That's that's an interesting proposition. I can't think of any other products that
I think the point is that, as we made in the presentation, that, because we can see the very clear correlation between youth use dropping and price increasing and adults quitting because of the price component, that really is just a clear representation of the need to address that problem.
Yeah, it's a straight line.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was Googling the sort of obvious example of minimum price that no one thinks about because it's so everywhere is minimum wage.
Well, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Frank Abair. I'm actually a planner with the city's planning division. I just first of all wanted to thank the panelists for this wonderful presentation, very informative. So I've been given the privilege of working on the ordinance to implement the city council's vision on regulating flavored tobacco. I just wanted to follow up on the comment that Brian mentioned earlier in terms of getting information to staff that you want the council to consider. So if there's any information that you would like to provide to me, I would surely appreciate it. You could just email that information to me if you wouldn't mind. My email is just frank.abejo. The spelling's up there on the Zoom call at cityofconcord.org. And if I can also, if possible, get the PowerPoint presentation, that would really help. And then the other thing I just want to add is hopefully you'll all be interested in being involved with the city's process in terms of discussing this at public hearings. We don't have anything scheduled. It's still very early in the process. But if you would like to stay informed in terms of how the ordinance is moving along, just feel free to email me your contact information. I could put you on an interested parties list. That way we'll let you know about any upcoming meetings and you could address our elected officials about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. What is your role in Concord government again? What was it?
I'm one of the principal planners
Principal
in the
planner.
planning division.
And you're saying that you are the one who has been tasked with developing this policy?
That's right. I'll be working on municipal code amendments to carry forward the city council's vision on how to regulate flavored tobacco. And like I said, it's still very early in the process. I think we're probably going to have some meetings internally in the next month or two to really get clarification on what the city council wants in the municipal code changes. And I'm hoping, well, I'm certain that we'll have something adopted in effect by the end of the year. At least that's my hope.
Okay, well, that's great news. Thank you for sharing that. So we were at the stage of wanting, we were going to be reaching out to one of your co-staff there who we met with before, so this is great news that we know that you're the one to talk to. But we, part of our work is technical assistance work in providing more information, and so yeah, sending you this information is great, but we'd love to have an opportunity to sit down with you and with anyone else who you will be working with on this, and just either virtually or otherwise, and go through some of the pieces that we talked about today to help you, have a clear understanding of what the options are and what's out there. Can we talk with you about that offline at some point?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be a big help.
Okay, we'll reach out to you when we're done here. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I think we do have a raised hand.
We do. Oh, sorry. Did you have another question, Tamara, or did you just not lower your hand?
Oh, I just didn't lower my hand. How do you do that?
I think you just
reaction,
click it again.
bottom button. Okay, there you go. All right. Okay, well, I guess we're done then. Thank you all so much for giving us the opportunity to be here today and to present to you. And thank you, Cameron, for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate
Oh,
it.
yours, Melissa.
Oh, sorry, Tamara. Go ahead.
No, I just said take it away, Melissa.
We also recorded this meeting, so if anyone wants to go back and watch it, we'll send the recording. As usual, I will send out the contact list so everyone can exchange emails if you want. And I'm also going to link the surveys and the forms that was put into the chat, so you guys can take those surveys and fill out the forms. Again, it'll be recorded. It's on Facebook Live. Please share it with your colleagues. There's a lot of great information. Brian, I'll be reaching out. I'm part of the Kiwanis Club, and we're interested in having you speak there as well. So we do appreciate that. A lot of great information. Some quick updates from the chamber. For those who don't know, Kevin Cabral, our president CEO, is no longer with us, but the rest of our team is still here. He's still going to be involved in the community. He's still here in Concord, so you will be seeing him. I've already talked to him twice today, so he's still around. But if you need anything from the team, we're still here. We're still running the chamber as usual. And that leads me to the mixer that we're having on Thursday. We are going to be in person. We will be following all CDC and Contra Costa County health guidelines. But it will be at Sidegate Brewery, and it is featuring Visit Concord's Comfort Food Week. So they're extending it. It's 2 weeks this year. There's a lot of discounts and coupons and everything that you can be using at the participating restaurants. So we will be having La Fritanguera, and I see Jennifer on this call, and Luna Ristorante. They'll be providing samples at the mixer. So we'll be inside, outside, again, trying to make it as safe as possible for everyone to be there. So it'll be a lot of fun. And that is our next big event for this month. We do have the rest of our events online. If you're interested in checking them out, we'd be very happy to see you at them. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions for us, for the chamber? Anything else maybe come up for Brian and his team? If not, we'll get you guys out a little bit early. Again, I'll be sending out the contact list shortly, so you have all the information there as well.
Melissa, we don't have a speaker for the February meeting yet, do we? Unless you have something in your pocket.
I think we had something in the works, but we were waiting to see if that was
Okay.
final.
I'll talk to you on that. Okay, March, I think March, we are looking at having the supervisor candidate forum. That's in the works, right?
Yes, we need to solidify dates for those on the call. We're looking at having a candidates forum for those running for supervisor, so you all can stay informed. And we know the final vote is in November, but the primary votes are in June 7th, I think. So we want to be able to provide you guys the platform to hear what our candidates have to say and what their views and what their stances are on certain topics. So we will be hosting that. We're hoping March. And then Tamara, remind me what April's was. We had another forum. What was April's? We had another forum.
April is the DA, or we were looking to have the DA candidates.
That's right.
And then I think in March, it's someplace in there, we're going to have Confire, but they have not confirmed yet. He will provide speakers, but we have to give him a date.
Great. So a lot's coming up. Just keep a lookout on the calendar. Also, Mayor Aliano, we are trying to plan the mayor's state of the city, but we're hoping to see if maybe we can have it in person at a later date. So we're working on that. So there's a lot in the works. We know that it's tough times right now, especially with COVID, but please bear with us as we work through it. Again, no matter what, we'll have stuff virtually, meetings virtually, so you can always join us there.
And in the primary, just confirming that if nobody gets a majority, then the top two go to November. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Top two vote getters will then go in November, unless someone gets a majority.
Right. All right, everyone, we appreciate you being here. We hope to see you soon, maybe at the mixer on Thursday if you're comfortable coming. With that, we will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Everybody take care.